Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we get episode 218.
Hello, Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay, Minnesota. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was Wyoming or Arizona.
Yeah, because, people get Arizona and Minnesota mixed up all the time. Isn't that the high school hockey tournament where everyone has the Dennis Eckersley hair flow?
Oh, yeah, the hair tournament. Yeah, the hairband tournament. Yeah. No, they packed that place, too. The place is packed for high school, yeah.
It's serious business.
Oh, yeah, it is, actually, yeah. So anyway, this is episode 218 of the Digital to Dice podcast. Ways to get a hold of us. Digitaltodice.com is the website. That's digitaltodice.com. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And if you'd like to support the show over on Patreon, patreon.com/digitaltodice. For $2 or $5, you can support the show. And we'd like to thank our new Patreons that signed up and jumped into the Discord, because you can get into our Discord if you're part of the $5 a month club member
yes,
plan.
You can.
Yep, and we've had some great discussions over there on show topics and all kinds of other things. Let me see. Couple of things here. Today we're going to be talking about setup and prep for your game. All right, and that's going to include a whole bunch of different things. I know we've kind of talked about it before in different ways, but we're going to really dive into it today. So we're going to talk about setup and prep. A couple of notes here before we get into what we're playing there, Jucket, and what's going on. Mm-hmm. This Saturday night, which I think is the 23rd of March.
Yes, 23rd.
Yep. We're going to be having on Mr. Hetrick again. He wrote the book about the Cleveland Spiders. You remember we had him on the show? And he's going to be back. He's got another book out, and he actually has a new baseball game out, too. So we're hoping to talk to him about the book and the baseball game live this Saturday night on my YouTube channel, and then we'll also turn that into the audio podcast as we normally do. Mm-hmm. So if you got any baseball questions, you want to talk to him about his game, about his book, Saturday night, probably around 7 o'clock Eastern time, is when we're scheduled to go live with our guests. And
nice.
We'll get him back on the show. The other thing, Strat Baseball Max, the mobile game for Strat-O-Matic, just announced that they're set to go live with the official game toward the end of April. They're shutting down the beta version, which everybody could play for free, on March 29th. And they're going to have, probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 weeks to kind of get the last-minute preparations done, and then they're going to launch for real.
They got a lot of good feedback on that. From the initial rollout, you can now do cards and dice.
Yeah, having the dice rolls and the cards was huge. It really was.
And they've said it's been a while since I tried it. They've optimized the game engine to go a little quicker, I think, too.
The thing that I needed to be done is the simulating of the games. It can't take 2 minutes per game.
Right.
Because if you got 10 games to simulate before your next game, that's 15 to 20 minutes that you're sitting there.
Right.
And I timed it one time at Market Basket. I was in line waiting to play a game, and I said, well, you got to simulate these games first, and I never got to play my game because by the time it was done simulating the games, I was checking out. Yeah. So they need to get that to be. There's no need for it to take that long.
I don't know if I'll get it. I say that because for me it would be browser based. I'm one of those rare people. I know, you can do an A&E documentary on me that just uses my phone to phone and text. I'm sitting by a computer, so I'm going to be playing. I'm not going to use my phone to play something. I'm going to play on my computer, and it's not the price. I mean, what you get for what you pay for is tremendous. Draft leagues and every season they've ever done, and access to all the cards and that. I don't think I'd use it enough to justify the price tag. Just personally,
I thought I'd use it in a doctor's office and things like that, and that's where I tried it. And it was okay, but I just found that I'm not a mobile gamer. I might play cribbage for a minute or two while I'm waiting for the doctor to come in, but that's about the highlight of what I do on my phone. I mean, I'll do mail in Discord and Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that on my phone. But as far as sitting down and gaming on my phone, I find I go a minute or two. I can play a 2-minute game of cribbage, and then that's about it. Then I put it away.
Would you do a hockey game?
No, I don't think so. I just find that's not my
just
thing.
something that you could just pick up and put down at your leisure.
I mean, maybe if it was on the iPad and I could get a nice bigger screen and it would do something like, I would definitely play like Franchise Hockey Manager on my iPad if it would handle it, and I would sit there and do my draft leagues and just whatever. I might, but I just find that I'm when I'm out in the wild, I'm out in the wild and I try to get home as soon as I can. I don't like to stay out very long, so I don't have the time to game.
I'm gonna say that it's a positive thing to do, and they got a lot right. It just, for my personal playing needs at this point, it doesn't seem like it's something that I would use enough.
I think I mentioned this before when it first came out, and we were talking about Strat Max. If by chance, and I know this will probably never happen, but if by chance they could tie it into my Strat PC game, so I could be sitting here at night playing a game of Strat PC baseball, and then stop in the middle and go out, and then I'm sitting at a doctor's office and says, well, let me pick up that game I was playing last night.
Huge.
That would be unbelievable.
That would be huge.
But no, they're two separate games, and I get it. But I mean, that's the only way I might do it, is if I could pick it up from the cloud and play that. Because I was doing that with Gems of War, is that I'd play on my iPad upstairs and then come downstairs and pick it up on the computer here. So I was kind of playing the same game, just bopping around. So, but something like that I might, but I don't know. I got to see when the final one comes out. I'd like to maybe check it out and see.
I will give it another look before they shut it down for the public for the selected beta. But again, that is not a knock on what they're doing or anything like that. It's just a case of, I know how I spend my gaming time, and what's easier for me. And I don't really play a lot of browser based games.
No, and I don't. I'm either a Steam guy, or I like to play a game right out of itself. You know what I mean? Open up, like I say, Strat PC Hockey or Inside the Crease, whatever. Yeah, I'm not much for the browser based stuff, just because if it crashes, that's it. Because when the other games crash, you can kind of pick them back up. Sometimes the browser based stuff is not quite as steady.
I think they say between every play, which might have been some of the issues with performance, is that if you got enough people playing at the same time, and you got to do that. So again, maybe I'll change my mind on it. But right now, it's a case of I love what they're doing with it. I think there are things that can be very good.
Let's see where it goes when it's done. You know what I mean? Let's wait and see.
So there we go.
All right. So should we get into what we're playing?
Yeah, sure.
All righty, why don't you lead things off this week?
Well, my Action PC 88 replay has reached Memorial Day. In fact, I do my Memorial Day doubleheader tomorrow. And the big surprise are the Seattle Mariners, who nearly lost 100 games in real life.
Okay.
At the quarter pole of the season, are a game and a half out of first behind Minnesota and Kansas City and Oakland in the American League West. I mean, they are hanging right in there.
Are you just waiting for them to collapse at this point?
I would think that, 500 would be a pretty remarkable run for them. I'm waiting for Oakland to wake up and take over that division, to be honest, because that's what happened in real life. I did, since we did what we were playing the last, I did a Seattle Yankee stream from Seattle, and they won. And the Yankees are a pretty good team, much as it pains me to say that. And so they're going to fade. It's kind of like when I did 49 a couple of years ago in Washington. Okay, you are playing way over your head. Gravity will come get you, but it's kind of fun when you have a team that's way out, playing way over its head, and see how far they can go. Now, the thing is, in the 80s, the American League West was a weak division. Oakland kind of took over as we hit the stage of the 80s, but there were years where, Minnesota won the World Series and they won 87 games. It doesn't take much to get above 500 to win that. So, who knows? who knows what will happen? And the American League East, if your name isn't Baltimore, you are within a shout. I mean, I did Milwaukee and Cleveland today. Cleveland was kind of the odd team out in '88. They're two back. Again, we're just past the quarter season of the season. So really unpredictable in the American League. The Mets are starting to pull away, which they should in the National League East. And the Reds have a 3.5 game bulge on the Dodgers. And so I wonder if Cyber Pete Rose will do it. But the Dodgers actually won that division going away. So that's been fun. I've been doing offline a roster card thing with Ballstat and Ball Store. Ended up with 12 teams from 78 and playing them against each other, 3 at home and 3 on the road. So if this one gets finished, it's a 66 game project for each team. And that's been fun. Roster card is one of those games that, as with every game, it has its flaws, but it's fun. And we'll talk about the setup part of that when we get to that. There's some offense there. And again, it's all the names from when I was a kid, but it plays fast. You can play a game in 20 minutes. And it's simple to use like APA. So if you know once you look at what the initial dice roll is, you know in your head immediately what it's kind of going to be, but not necessarily. And so it's fun. It's fun. And it flies. So
nice.
Sports-wise, that's what I've been doing.
Okay. Let me see. I've been really heavily into football, as you've probably seen on my channel. I've been kind of bouncing back and forth between the Quick Dex football and the Apple football. They're just two good games. And I thought I already had my long play football games here behind me, but I just added 2 more to that list. Of, now I really have 5 fantastic full play football games. I really do. And it just kind of fit in at the right time for me because I just got done all my hockey broadcasting and all kind of come to a big head in one weekend. And now I got some gaming time. And so I pulled out, Grant's Quick Dex football game. And oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. It really is. It's an unbelievable game. So and he's working on a hockey game too. So we're gonna get him on the channel here shortly and talk to him about the game that he's got and what's going on with him and how many seasons he's hoping to get out and the whole bit. Those games, the Quick Dex game is just fantastic. I haven't played the full game yet. I don't know if I'll get to that for a while, but the Quick Dex is so good. It really is. And then I finally cracked open Apple football. And had a rough start because I was not feeling good last week, and I tried to set up a game, and I spent an hour trying to set up a game, and I was like, if I got to spend this much time setting up a game, it's just not going to be fun. And then I did it again, and it was a lot faster, and then I played a little bit, and I found out exactly what I needed. So the key is to play, and then see what you need when you play. So after playing a couple of quarters, okay, I know what I need now. So now I went into my publishing program and I got a template set up and I dropped in, helmets and logos and made it look nice. Excuse me. And now I know what I need to get my hands on during a game. So I got my team cheat sheet and now I have the cards all set up in the order that I need them. And so we'll talk about that in setup today. But now that it's all set up and I know what I'm doing, I can set up a team in 10 to 15 minutes, and then they're done. They're done forever. The cards are in the envelope the way that I need them to go in the envelope, and the team sheet is where that needs to be. And so now if I want to play a game between 2 teams that I've already set up, so to speak, I pull them out and I'm set up in under a minute and I'm playing.
So you're done.
And I'm playing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But I got off to a bad start. Again, I wasn't feeling good. I was tired. I was impatient. And I fought it. I really fought the setup. Not the game, but I fought the setup. Right. But I knew I needed some kind of setup for this game because I didn't want to go into the game. And I'll talk a little bit, more in detail in the main topic here. But I didn't want to go in just throwing the cards on the table and being lost. I wanted to have some kind of and I knew I needed to set something up, and I did. But anyway, and what's been really fun about that is so I got 1978, and I did a season swap, and I also have 1976. So I got two of my favorite seasons, and I think I'm doing another player swap. Boy, let me say this: the APA football community is awesome.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not saying that other communities are not awesome, but I was having problems with this game, and immediately 3 or 4 people went on YouTube and made videos for me to help me out. I was getting texts, I was getting emails, I was getting Facebooks. All these people tell, don't give up, stick with it. You're so close. Blah 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 blah. I got one guy that he's like, I have an extra season. Let me send it to you. Things like that. And someone's like, hey, let me send you the master game so you can try that. People have just come out of everywhere to help me stick with this game. And they're a big reason why I did. All those people that did the videos and contacted me and gave me suggestions and tips, and they're like, hey, let me send you a season. I mean, it's unbelievable. One guy's letting me borrow his 1979 season so I can play the Buccaneers in the playoffs.
There you go.
And he's like, just when you're done, send it back, And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll do that. But it's been so cool, the support that I've got from the Apple football community, and I'm hoping to set up a chat some night with 3 or 4. We're going to just talk some Apple football, and I'm not sure when that's going to be, but I've contacted a few of the people, and I think we're going to come on and talk some Apple football. But the game itself is so good. The basic game is so good, and I looked into the master game, and I was watching what was his name, Barath.
Ogard.
Yeah. He does. There was one from 10 years ago, and I'm watching a video from 10 years ago.
He is the master of Apple football.
I watched some of his stuff before, but now that I'm playing it, I'm a little bit more intent. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So he convinced me to try the master game. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to pick and choose right now what I want to do for the master game. But it looks like it could be a lot of fun.
And if you're not familiar with him out there, he does whole seasons. He does like 2 or 3 season replays a year.
Yeah, I need to start following that a little bit more.
Because it's all on the app form on Delphi. And he's got that is his game, and he's got that down to an absolute science and loves it. And the game is pretty close. I learned how good the 91 Redskins are historically from his replay. Or maybe it was Mark Zarb's. Oh, you had on the show before. They ran the table.
Oh, wow.
Which, if you look at what they did in real life, you kind of wonder why they didn't run the table. I mean, they were that. So the game does a good job into carding, to getting that right on the table to that. So
let me just say that after playing the Apple football, I think Apple football is their best game. And again, I'm still in the honeymoon phase and the whole bit, but I had no problem picking up this game. The setup aside, that was on me.
Right.
But the game itself, the basic game, just plays so smooth. It feels like a damn football game. And I did a video on my first game, and the ball's on the 17 in New England, and I go to throw a pass, and there's a fumble 17 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So in my mind, I'm picturing Grogan going back, getting pressured. Somebody hits the ball out of his hand. It bounces into the end zone, right? 1 yard deep. It's picked up by the tackle, Leon Gray, the offensive tackle. So now I'm pulling out the offensive tackle card, something I never thought I'd ever do in Napa football. My very first game, I need to pull out the offensive lineman. And he rolled 1 yard, so he got it to the goal line. He got it out of the goal line to avoid a safety. And I just pictured that whole play in my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so awesome. It really is. I take my time. It takes me forever to play the game, but I just enjoy every play and every chart look up, and I just kind of envision the play in my head. And it's something that I can't quite do in hockey. I mean, I do a little bit and a little bit more in baseball, but for some reason in football, I can really kind of picture that play happening in my head. So I've been enjoying the crap out of that. In fact, to a point, I went on YouTube and I'm watching all the NFL, This Week in NFL 1978, and I'm watching the weeks that I'm playing. So week 1, week 2, and I'm looking at the matchups. It's like, okay, who do I want to play next? And who do I want to play next?
Nice.
And so I was going to play the whole Patriots season, and I probably will. But holy cow, I was setting up the Dallas Cowboys from '78. Oh my gosh,
Yeah, they are good.
Ooh, I haven't done Pittsburgh yet, but I did Dallas, and I'm like, wow, this team is just going to stomp.
I wonder how Pittsburgh will set up, because their strength is their defense. I mean, they were a lot better offensively in '78. I've done that season in 2nd and 10, and I've done it in Action PC. And the Steelers won the Super Bowl in both. They beat in 2nd and 10. They beat Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And Action PC, which is when I started the channel way back 6 years ago, they came back in the fourth quarter to beat Dallas. And so I'm just kind of curious, because that is a run first and heavy defensive team, how well that will stack up.
Yeah. So I was just going to play New England, but after putting Dallas together, it's like I got to play Dallas. I have to play some Dallas games, because that's just going to be so much fun, And I hated Dallas and Pittsburgh back in the day, because New England never won back in the day, and I hated it. But now I respect those teams so much when I see these guys. And I'll talk more about that in the setup. But that's kind of what I'm playing. A lot of football right now. I did print out the new Shootout Hockey Season 90-91, which is one of my favorites, and it's still sitting here right to my left, waiting to be cut and played. Because I printed it and I was ready to cut it, and then these football games fell in my lap, and it's just kind of what I've been doing, So anyway, all right. So that's about it for me, what I've been playing. So you want to get into our topic of the day?
Absolutely.
All righty. So setup and prep, and what's the old saying? An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure, or something like that.
I think you got something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in that a little bit of pre-thought and pre-notion will save you some aggravation in the long run, or something like that. My uncle calls it the 5 Ps, and it's proper planning prevents piss poor results.
There you go.
It's the 5 Ps, if you think about it. And so that's kind of what I'm finding out here. And I used to do that mostly with the baseball games, is I would hem and haw over, if I wasn't playing with Digital Diamond, if I was just playing on the tabletop, when I write out my lineup for the two teams, do I start putting in their ratings, their arm strength and their speed and their defense and their error? Do I want to write all that down? Because you never know what you're going to need, or what, you're doing a lot of prep for potentially nothing. Okay. But when that comes up in the game and you got to stop and filter through cards, it is kind of nice just to look at the batting lineup and have that number there. So it's do you pay now? Do you pay later? It's kind of
right
where it goes with that stuff there. And I still hem and haw over that. When I'm setting up a baseball game, it's like, I'm just going to put the lineup down, and if I have to, I'll flip through the cards when I need to, because, the chances are I'm not going to need everyone's error rating or everyone's arm rating or everyone's speed rating. I won't need them all. I'll need some of them from time to time, but I just don't know when.
You never know what it is you're going to need.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do with that? Do you say, I'm going to set it up and I'm going to plan, and that way there, when the game comes up, I can just speed right through that? Or do I want to stop the game and start looking through cards? I
think it comes down to what's, your own personal immersion factor is for that. How much of that do you write down? I would think that fielding ratings would probably be what I would write down, just because that's going to be the most common thing that you're going to refer to. With the speed ratings, they're on the card. I mean, if you look at Robert's Ladson setup, RJL setup for inside pitch when he's playing, he puts the cards on the bases. So when he needs to look at an offensive rating or a speed rating, it's all right there in front of him. He doesn't need to write that down.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, doing that too. But I just find it like a hem and haw with baseball with that. The hockey's, there's a lot of prep for me in hockey, because when I play a game, I'll usually go to, the Pro Hockey Reference site and call up the game I'm looking to play, and I'll pull out the guys that are playing in that game that I have cards for. Again, Hockey Bones cards, everybody. If it's an APA game, And then I'll just grab as many as I have. Then I'll card everybody. So I'll grab as many as I can. And I try to play that game as close to the original lineup as possible. So there's a lot of prep for the hockey for me, unless I just want to whip out a game and have some fun. Sometimes, like, I just want to play a game and have some fun. This is no project, no nothing. And I just feel like playing Bobby Orr. I feel like playing Brad Park or Tony Esposito.
And if you're doing Blast, you can have all the cards out at the same time.
Well, that's the thing about Blast. Yeah, you can just lay everybody out. So there's not a lot of setup for Hockey Blast. You just set it up. You try to figure out your best lines and the whole bit. With that game, actually, it's interesting you brought up Hockey Blast. That game kind of forces you to set up.
Right.
There's no way around the setup and the prep for Hockey Blast. You have to set up your lines. You got to figure out who's on what line, what guys are not playing in the game. So there's no working around that. You just you got to kind of figure out your best lines for Hockey Blast. So there's definitely a setup and prep with that, no matter what you do with that. I would say Grant's 49 Sports Quick Decks football game, there's no setup time. There's no prep at all because it's a team sheet. You just put your team sheets up, and then you lay your cards down, and you start rolling dice and playing.
Pen and paper. I mean, that's about it. But there's not a lot of extra stuff going on because of the team sheets. And there's a lot of Downey football games that are like that too, like the fast action football, which I haven't played in years, but I really liked. They're all team sheets too. So you don't need to look up anything. It's all right there, and that's the great thing about having a game with team sheets. And that's kind of what I've done with Apples. I'm trying to create a team sheet so I don't have to be ciphering through cards all the time to find the things. There's a lot more than the 9 that you would find in a baseball game.
Yeah.
Your hockey cards are all laid out anyway. You do it by lines, and so it's just like, okay, flip that over. But everything that you would need in the hockey game is just the players on the ice at that moment, as opposed to, you talked about, we were playing about pulling out the lineman cards, not something that you think you're ever going to use. Well, there you go. That once in the 120 plays where the lineman recovers the fumble and you have to fish it out.
Yeah.
For me, doing any sort of card and dice is, the setup is, how am I going to record the information that I'm playing? And so, let's say, a Roberto Savini game or that, because you're going, for me, on a PDF, there's no score sheet. So I have to start by typing in whatever I need from the PDF into an Excel spreadsheet. And again, I can type pretty fast, but names you can't dictate names. What's the name of that East German swimmer? Schniegel swimmer. The dictation thing is going to go, what? And so by the time one of the reasons why I don't play as much of it as I'd like to, because by the time that you type everything, that I type everything in, you've taken long enough to get it. And again, is the setup, taking the time to set something up, is it worth to actually do it because you've tired yourself up? Now, if I was smart, I'd do it the night before and then, still be in the mood to do that. So for me, getting everything in a place where I can record what's going on is a huge part of that. Motorsport, which I've showed off a couple times. Again, you got to copy down the names of all the drivers and then do the minimal amount of prep work. For that, it's where did they start on the grid and where did they finish? And then you read off the charts and put what their movements are and all that. So most of the work in that game is the setup. Again, the payoff is worth it, and I don't mind doing it. But for me, that's part of the thing. Let me talk about roster card real quick, because I've been doing a bunch of that. That's on team sheets. So it's one side of a page is batters and another side of the page is pitchers. And so I just use Excel because they're all in there. And there are 3 things on each pitcher that I write down in Notepad. I need their hit rating, I need their walk rating, and I need their strikeout rating. Okay, and so after I do that, unless I'm changing my pitcher, I don't need to refer to anything else in the pitcher's card. I'm using the DH. Don't shoot me. Okay, so that's a Notepad. I'm using Andy Lewis's flipper to get the results. So all I got to do, and I'm using ball score to score the games. So all I got to do is just hit the right button in my taskbar to play the game. After the lineups are set, kind of like what you're going to talk about with Apple football, they're all done. I just have to pull up the roster, change the starting pitcher, record the information, and they're ready to go. Again, the initial part of that is the hard part, but I've only got 2 more teams to do for that first round, and then everyone will be set up. And so the setup for that gets quicker and quicker and quicker. But once that work is done, just like you're going to talk about, it's done. It's all done, and then you get to play quicker. One of the reasons why that's harder with the Shavini games and some of the other more esoteric or niche games is you're not necessarily running the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You're not, if you're doing thought about doing some sort of a car series, okay, maybe you still got to set the 20 drivers or whatever over and over and over again. And that kind of takes away from it. Again, not a bad thing at all. I mean, it just makes it's playing the game. I mean, we talked about with Blast that, or when you're rolling to see who gets figuring out the scoring chances in shootout, for instance, it's part of playing the game. You've started to play the game once you've gotten to that stage.
Well, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, there's a whole prep thing going on at the restaurant.
Right.
You cut the lettuce up. You make the tuna fish ahead of time, things like that. Because when someone orders a tuna fish sandwich, you don't want to be pulling out the can of tuna and mixing with the mayonnaise and chopping the celery and the pickles and the lettuce and the onions and throwing it in there. You want to have that ready so you can kind of scoop that out of the bin and put that on the bread and fire that out of there. So, even in the restaurant business, there's a lot of things that you do for prep. So when the time comes, when crunch time comes and things are happening, you're not starting from scratch. You have things.
Bacon and home fries are on the grill at all times.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what we're talking about here. And so what I was doing with that is I did a twofold thing with the Apple football. One is I have my team sheet with my starters on offense and defense with their number ratings, so I know what the team ratings are. So they're done. My starting ratings are done. The only time that'll change is if I play a different game and there's different personnel.
Right.
Now I haven't got to the point where every time I bring in a new player that I'm changing the numbers, which you're supposed to do, but I'm kind of working around that right now as a newbie with that. So I'm just kind of whatever your starting lineup is, that's going to be your offense and defensive number for the game. Unless something major happens, somebody goes out with an injury and I'll bring somebody in and maybe I'll change it. But for the most part, I just stick with that for right now. But up on that cheat sheet, I have my kickers and my kick returners because those are the guys you're looking for a lot. Your kickoff returners, your punt returners, you want those at your fingertips. So I've kind of done a double, shall we say, a double setup for the Apple football. Whereas I have my team sheet, which I have on a stand, so I can look to see who's my punter, who's my punt returner for the other team. If there's an interception to D7, I know who D7 is. I can pull him out in a second right now. So I've set up the cheat sheet for my teams, but also I've set up the cards because football cards, there's so many positions, so many things going on. I have my defensive stack here. I have my quarterback with his 5 linemen behind him in another stack, and then I got my my running backs and my receivers right in front of me because I like to alternate who's going to run and who's going to catch. And then I got, the kickers and the receivers in another pile. So, and then I put them all back into the envelope in a certain way. So when I take them out, I can put them all into their piles, and I'm done with it. So I'm not. My frustration when I set up Apple Football, Ron, was I had a stack of cards that was huge. It was like a deck of cards, and I had to go through every single one to find my starters, and that's what was driving me nuts. Okay,
and that can be tough the first time you do it.
Yeah.
And then the next season you get, if you just keep getting used seasons, it may have already been done for you.
Yeah, so now, but what I had to do is you had to go through everybody. You had to find the starters, and that was a pain in the neck. So now what I do is when I take out a fresh deck of cards for teams, I separate them. I got 3 piles for offense and 3 for defense. You got your linemen, your running backs, in receivers, and then you got your offensive line. Those are my 3 stacks. On defense, it's the linemen, the linebackers, and the safeties and cornerbacks. So I got 3 stacks. And so I first separated them into those 6 stacks, and now I can get at them. So now when I set up my lineup, here's all the linemen that I can use. I find the 3 that I need, boom, done. Find my linebackers, here's my cornerbacks, done. And so it's just kind of like a process of elimination. But in the beginning, I was going through every single card. Do I need this guy? Do I need this guy? Now it's like, okay, let me sort them out like the mail, sort it out by directories, and now I can go back into this smaller stack and take care of it. So I've come up with a system now when I set up a new team that I separate the cards, I create my sheet, and then I take my cards, put the ones I don't need face down into the envelope, and the other ones go into the envelope in a certain order. So when I take them out, I can immediately play, and I just put them back in that certain order. And so the system I've developed is, again, it takes me 10 or 15 minutes to prep a team now, depending on, sometimes there's more guys in the envelope than other teams, but I can bang out a team pretty quick, print out that team sheet, put the cards back in the envelope. Now when I take them out, that team's ready to go.
Yeah, when they're done, they're done.
That's the thing is when they're done, they're done. And man, I was going about it the long way in the beginning, and then I said, okay, let me find a better way. But so I do the sheets and I do the cards, and so now that football game, and then that kind of ties into the other thing. Is so I'm going to spend 10 to 15 minutes getting a team ready. Okay, so let's just say there's 2 teams I don't have set up, and I want to play 2 teams. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to take 20 minutes to a half hour to set up these 2 teams to play the game. The game time length has a lot to do with how much prep time I'm going to put in.
Okay.
In this case, Apple football is going to be hours. So to put in 20 minutes or so to set up the game is well worth that investment, because this is going to be a long game. Now, would I spend a half hour setting up an APA baseball game? Probably not, because the baseball game's probably going to be, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend more time prepping and setting up than I am playing the game.
But there are other ways around that, too. I mean, you can get from DigiDugout, you can print out the real-time lineup for that, pull out the cards that you have or just kind of guess or whatever. I mean, a lot of that work can be done. And again, it depends on what, what do you want to feature? I mean, if with runners on base, you're going to be looking to see if they're a fast runner or a slow runner, or what their grades are in Strat, if you want to steal and yada, yada, yada. But, I think, it's kind of, like seasoning food. Pick how much salt, how much pepper, how much garlic, or none of those things, or how much sugar you want to put in your coffee, until you figure out how to do it right. For football, even if I'm playing, 2nd and 10, it'll tell you how many carries and how many catches you have. So you can kind of formulate a game plan without too much. But other times you just go to if there are 2 teams that you're not intimately familiar with, I go to Pro Football Reference. What did they do? How many times did MacArthur Lane carry the football in an average game? And so I know, trying to get a mix in my head, that kind of goes out the window depending on the game situation. But if you know that a team ran 30, 35 times in a game and so ran for 25 times, it gives you a good idea of what you should do, and that kind of gets you through the first half, and then you got to figure out what adjustments you're making there.
And I think going back to game time length and prep and setup, it also depends on what you're setting up. For example, season ticket baseball. Okay, it's a fantastic game. It does have the one flaw in that game is that if someone's playing out of a primary position, you do have to go to page 13 and figure out their results. So in other words, if you got a guy that usually plays first base, and so you got his ratings, so everything in the 500 range is a fielding check from 510 to 599, I believe, if my math is right. And so from 510 to 599, on the guy's card, it'll tell you what the results are, out, safe, error, whatever. Well, if he's playing in the outfield, that's a very different set of ratings or set of outcomes, and that's not on the card. So what ID was doing is he would start the game up and he would list everybody's alternate position, and then figure out all the results. So if you rolled a 5-11, or that's bad. If you rolled a 5-30, whatever, that's a hit down to first base. Well, if you had an outfielder playing first base as a secondary position, he was figuring out all the ratings, so he didn't have to do it during the game. The only problem is with a game like Season Ticket, the chance of getting a defensive rating on a guy playing a secondary position is pretty remote. It might not happen at all during the game. So he was spending a lot of time, and again, prepping. There's nothing wrong with that. So he has everybody's rating for that team at their secondary position. That's great, because once it's done, it's done. So if you had an outfielder playing first base, he has a chart all set for that. But that was a lot of extra prep and setup for that game, and chances are you're probably not going to need that.
Yeah, and the thing is, primarily, the chances of you having someone who is a center fielder playing second base is almost non-existent. You're going to have a utility infielder at your disposal. But then again, you want to have all your bases covered. For basketball, I really don't do any prep work outside of, I don't remember this player, player A was pretty good. Let me go look in the Basketball Reference, so the next time I run to player A, I know a little bit better, or all that. That's about it. You do a lot of as played stuff, so you go through and look up lineups and such. For hockey, well, let me talk about how I prep a project that I'm going to be streaming. Computer stuff you do prep work for the baseball. I have to make sure that I put in all the logos for the teams. That's prep work. That's setup. For Action PC, I have the uniforms and the logos, and sometimes I'm setting up the picture of the field seconds before I go live, because I'll look and go, oh, I didn't do that yet. It's 11:56. How fast can I do this? So that's all prep work. And if you're playing like OOTP, you're downloading the mods from the workshops for that. You do a lot with making sure that the colors look right for that. And so that is exactly the same thing. It's all setup time. You can even talk about cutting cards. I remember I forget what it was that you were playing right off the bat, and you had the card cutter. And you were printing off your PDFs and rounding corners. That's all setup time. I mean, some of that is, it doesn't mean that it's drudgery. You're taking time with the cards to either become familiar with the game or, well, how did this person get carded? I mean, that's all there and can build to the excitement for what you want to do. So yes, it's setup time isn't just writing down ratings on a sheet. It's what are you doing to mentally prep yourself for what you're about to do?
To try to you're trying to make the game better and easier to play. You're trying to do all the grunt work. You're trying to get everything done so when you sit and play the game, you can enjoy the game and not have to worry about some of the extra stuff. Is kind of what it is. That's basically what we do. You want to be stopping the game to be looking up stuff. You want to have everything there at your fingertips, or as much as you can, to make that game go smoother. The other thing about setup and prep is that what I wasn't doing when I was first setting up the app of football games, I wasn't having any fun with it. That was my thing. Is I got to try to embrace it and have some fun. And so I'm going through all the cards. And when I got to the defense, I was realizing that there's some defenses that go 3-4 and some that go 4-3. And I don't know much about that, but it was explained to me that, look, I'm looking at the starting lineups, and if there's only three down linemen, then they're playing the 3-4.
Right.
And so I kind of started having some fun now. When I set up a team, it's like, okay, what's their defense? Are they a 4-3? Are they a 3-4? And who's my ends and who's my nose tackle and who are my linebackers? And that turned into a lot of fun. is seeing which teams are going 3-4 and which teams are going 4-3, and I'm talking 1978 right now. Right. So I started to have some fun with this setup, seeing how they were seeing, okay, so if I play this team, they're going to be playing 4-3 versus 3-4, and how's that going to shake out in the whole bit? So that was really kind of fun. And then the other part of the fun was when I set up the Dallas Cowboys from 1978. Holy cow. I mean, there were guys that were not starters on that team that would start on all the other teams.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I can't believe this guy is not in the starting lineup, or he's not the starting cornerback, or he's not the starting running back, or not the starting receiver. It just was just an all-star team. And it's like, man, so as I'm sorting the cards out, I'm like, okay, this is fun.
How do you think Danny White felt all those years?
Right? He was so good. He was the punter behind Staubach. Come on.
Right.
It's like, Jeepers Creepers. So, but it was fun sorting that out, and then I was getting excited to play Dallas, because now I'm going to be playing some Dallas games. Okay, I'm excited.
The good news is that all that work that you just saw as work to start, the reward was worth it. The game itself plays well for you.
Yeah. It's
easy to do. You're familiar with how APA works. At some point, memorization's going to come in, and that's going to be, you'll get it, you'll like it, and once the setup is there, it's not. Let me talk about Classic F1.
Okay.
Which is a great game. I'll probably never play again, and I have a lot of it, because the setup is about an hour and a half. Just to get to qualifying, you got to go to play the game the way that it's designed to play. You got to figure out your drivers first of all, and then what kind of track you're doing, and then you roll to see which of the drivers' cars you're actually going to have. And if someone drove 20 years, there could be 20 different, options to go there. And then you get the ratings from that, and then you do some more calculations for that. And then you got to qualify all those cars in whatever method you want, because there's no automatic qualifying there. And so it's going to take you an hour and a half just to put the 20 cars on the bleeding grid. And then you go through, it's an extremely detailed game. Anthony has done a tremendous job with it. And I keep seeing rumors of an IndyCar game that would be the same thing. It is a game designed for someone who was a serious fan of that particular sport. I don't want to sound like that, I'm whining about doing it. So you talk about the setup, at an APA football, you're doing that setup. Well, guess what? The setup is all there for the next time you do it.
Yeah.
In this particular thing, you're setting up, and then you pretty much have to go through the same procedure for any race that you want to run. Again, the game is great, but there's someone wanted me to do a whole kit and caboodle showing it. It would be a 4-hour stream. And at that point, I like forms of auto racing. I like playing auto racing sims, but that seems to be on the again, the reward for your effort. If you're not a super serious fan of that, it's not going to be worth it. You got the immediate reward. Okay, I figured this out. It was a pain in the tushy to do, but I got everything here. And the game, it all kind of went, I suppose, I don't want to say downhill because that means bad. Uphill, it all went smooth after you had it figured out. So it wasn't like you were fighting yourself after you did the work, because that can kill a game. You do all that work to prep something up, and then you're fighting to figure out how the game works.
Yeah.
It's like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're absolutely done after this because it's no fun. And every game has to be fun for you
to play. The game itself has to be fun. If I didn't have any fun with the APA football game after all that setup time, no, I don't play it.
And I could see you weren't feeling well and all that, and the anticipation is, when do we actually get to play the game? And if the game wasn't what you had wanted to do, then that would just add to your frustration of going, I can't believe I've just wasted all this to do that. Now, fortunately, most games are quite good. And again, the game I just picked on it's a great
Yeah.
game if you are the right type of fan.
Yeah. Well, the game, I'll be honest that, me and you talked off air after I did that setup video and the whole bit. And I was like, Ron, I don't know if I can do this for every game, and I said, well, maybe I did something wrong in the whole bit and there's got to be a better way. But for right now, so I put it back in the box and I put it in the closet and I go upstairs and the mail arrives and Matt had sent me the 1976 season for Apple football. So I take it out, and there's Tampa Bay on the top, and there's New England on the top, and I'm just like, well, I need to pull it back out and play this Tampa Bay team now. And I did that, and that kind of saved it for me, because if I didn't get that 76 season in the mail, Appa might be in the closet there, and I'll go back and give that a second chance at some point, but I'm kind of mad right now. But when that arrived, it kind of just brought a smile to my face, so I pulled it back out, and just everything kind of turned around from that point. So again, the community comes through to bail out a game for me, which I was struggling with off the bat. I want to add one more.
Again, let me add this again. I mean, we've talked about this before. Well-written instructions, because that's all part of the setup. I mean, you've talked about this time and time again, and have been right about it. You get, especially when you're not familiar with how something plays, you pull out the instructions, you're trying to figure out how to do this. I think I've got this figured out right, but you've got an example that doesn't quite fit with this, and it gets put in the closet again, because the first time you do a playthrough on something, you're referring to the instructions. Second time, not as much, and by the fourth or fifth, you're good to go. But if you keep going back to the instructions as you're trying to figure out how to set this up, and you can't figure it out, you're pulling your hair out. And again, that's why good, solid, well-written, good example instructions save games while you're setting up. Because again, we are all tentative the first time we try something. Absolutely.
Yep. I don't know if this would be considered setup and prep, but when I was sitting here a few months ago redoing the Hockey Blast seasons. So in other words, I got my old Hockey Blast cards out here, and I'm redesigning them to look like the new ones, because the new ones are gorgeous. They really are. So I kind of come up with my own way of making them look new, and I got to go in and type out every single player and every single quality and get the stars just right. And it took a long time to do that.
That's prep.
That was, but I mean, it was, I didn't need to do that though, because I already had the cards. I just wanted them to look better. So I was redoing my cards. And I see a lot of people do that, because I see a lot of people, whether it's Apple cards or Strat cards or, whatever, payoff pitch or whatever game you want to call it. And you look and they got like logos on it or colors on it, or they've been redone, with team colors. And it's just like, well, these are not the original cards. So obviously somebody likes this enough to go and, make these cards, redo these cards. And it's, so I did that with Hockey Blast, and it's like I didn't have to do that, but I guess it was part of the prep and setup, I guess, in an odd way.
And to whet your appetite, because so-and-so's carded this way. Oh, I didn't think that this was that for let's say Bobby Orr or something like that. I didn't realize it had that category.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was fun doing that, again, going through the players and the stuff, the players and, the names and, the history and the legacy of the whole thing. And it was really kind of fun doing that. After a while, it did get tiring, redoing all the teams over. But once I was done and I played the game, I was happy that I'd spent the time doing that.
Absolutely.
Because the cards were easier to read and they just look so much better. And it was really fantastic. So, but anyway, now the ultimate setup and prep for the least amount of enjoyment in time has got to be dominoes. Setting up thousands of dominoes,
not the pizza, because
imagine
I have to chop up the pineapple because some people want that. That's just not worth it.
Imagine spending hours and days setting up thousands of dominoes, and then it's gone in like 45 seconds.
You're actually talking about knocking down dominoes.
Yeah, when you set up all those things you see there, it's like, but
the payoff is so worth it, because I've watched some of those videos, but
that's the ultimate prep and setup. It really is.
And it has to be so precise too, or else it doesn't work.
I think what they do actually is they put little blocks in place every so often, so if somebody accidentally hits something, the whole thing doesn't go down. So they set up these little roadblocks to
Do you think
section it
you've
off.
had a bad day? You've spent 2 weeks doing that, and the cat walk or the dog walk.
You can't have any cats in the building. That's for sure.
It's like aha.
Then they would knock it over just to be a jerk.
They are no longer getting their treats after that. No more temptations after that. Yeah, no, I get that.
All right, so let's wrap it up here. So setup and prep, it's nothing that you have to do, but again, if you spend the time to do it, the idea is to make the game a little bit easier, a little bit funner, a little bit quicker, so you can spend more time in the game and less time.
Well, it helps build the anticipation for what you want to do.
That too, yeah. When you're going through the team beforehand, it's almost like a pregame show. Yeah,
right.
Yep, it kind of is.
Jimmy the Greek is checking that box.
Oh, I used to love that NFL Today.
Quick story. As you know, at the Super Bowl, both Jim Nantz and Dan Patrick have made impassioned pleas to the Pro Football Hall of Fame to get Brent Musburger in. Nantz did it during the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And so Musburger was on Dan Patrick Super Bowl week, and they're telling, stories about, Phyllis George and all that. And so they go to Pete Rozelle before the 76 season. We want to add Jimmy the Greek. We want to have some sort of, today, I mean, this wouldn't be taboo at all. There's satellite radio channels specifically for sports betting. But 76, that was a big deal. And Rozelle gave his blessing for a bookie to be on the show. But Rozelle said to Musburger and Wessler, who I think was the executive producer of the NFL Today then, I would rather not have point spreads. If you could figure out, I would rather not, it's up to you guys, but I'd rather not, have Pittsburgh plus 10, minus 10 on the screen. And that's where the checks on the screen would come up with, because, with the better offense, with the better defense, with the better intangibles, because, that was I'd rather not does not mean you can go ahead and do it. It was Rozelle in a very nice way going, I don't want to see a point spread on your show. Yeah. And so, I just thought that was so that's why they did all of that, was because you just couldn't go, Denver into 7.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was,
that was fun. That back in the day. That's why I'm playing 76 and 78 right now, because those are my big years for football, which I really love. And again, I'm going through the teams right now and seeing all these names, and Vince Ferragamo, backup quarterback for the Rams and stuff like that. It's just fun. It really is. It is fun going through the cards. That first time I went through, I was not in a good mood, and I just wanted to play the game. But now I'm enjoying it. You know
how the cards work. I think if you did it again, that's going to be awesome.
Well, that's the thing, is now I know what to look for on the cards. When I'm separating them, I know who the cornerbacks are. Now I'm looking for nose tackles. Are they playing a 3-4? I'm looking for my punters and my punt returners. So I'm getting used to the symbols. So it's completely different than it was when I come in completely cold to the game, But it is an interesting transformation from the videos that I did to, where I started to where I am now. So
maybe the key thing is don't be looking up new games when you're not feeling all that.
Oh, man, yeah. No, I was not in a good way.
Chicken soup is there for a reason.
It is. So is pineapple pizza, because that got me through it.
Yes, it did.
All right, so let's get to our stars of the week.
By the way, as you said that.
Yeah, I know. I hear them. All right, so this is episode 218. We're talking about setup and prep, and here are our stars of the week. Number 3-star, in no particular order, is Brian Hoxie.
Yay!
Brian, thank you so much for being a Patreon member. Our number 2-star, I hope I'm going to say this correctly, Adam Giordandis. I think it is Giordandis. I'm sorry, Adam. Adam G.
Yay, G!
Adam, thank you so much for supporting the show. And then one of our newer Patreons, somebody that we all know, and he made it clear he's not from Cleveland. Just
That's
to be
right.
clear. Okay. Dave Little.
You don't get lectured very often. Yay!
That was funny. I am not from Cleveland.
And he's not from Cincinnati either.
That's all right. He's out that way. He's over there some way, Duluth or something like that, isn't he? I don't know.
Columbus.
That's what I said. That's
not what you said.
All right, here we go. So you've been listening to the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 218. We talked about setup and prep. We want to know, what's your setup and prep? Do you have a large setup and prep, or minimal, or none? And, what do you do for setup and prep when you play your games? Because we like to see what other people are doing and how they're doing it, because that's how we learn. Ways to get a hold of us: digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. I want to shout out to the APA football community. Thank you so much for supporting me and my brand new venture into APA football. It's been fantastic, the outreach. So again, shout out to that community there for the messages, the emails, the videos, the whole bit. It just was, it was great, and it's got me totally addicted to this game now. So that's what I wanted to say. Thanks to our 3 stars of the week. And we look for your feedback on this one. And don't forget, Saturday night, we're going to have Mr. Hetrick on to talk some more baseball, his baseball game, and his new baseball book. So that's coming up this Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Say goodbye, Ron.
Goodbye, Ron. Good night, Duluth. Bye-bye.